and there's been a lot of fallout from it, whether it's the Ric Flair allegations, Tommy Dreamer's comments, lots of stuff to kind of go into. So, Finn, I want to come to you and ask, obviously you remember this at the time, back in 2002.
Yeah.
Talk me through your experience of watching Dark Side of the Ring. Was there stuff that you didn't expect to see? How do you think the whole thing kind of came off in the end?
I mean, the tone of it, tonally, it was very different. The Dark Side of the Ring episode on the plane ride from hell than the reporting of it at the time. And that was acknowledged in the Dark Side of the Ring. They were saying that mostly the comments about it or the recollections of it had been sort of had a humorous tone. But this was very different. This was very serious. Mostly because of, I don't know what you say, revelations, because a lot of this came out at the time, certainly in the lawsuit that was filed, I think, in 2004. But there were some comments made as well in 2002 about what happened to the flight attendants. And Heidi Doyle, as you know, Kenny, was really the star of the episode. And she very frankly, candidly, and very soberly just recounted what happened to her, what she says happened to her in the galley, the allegations made about Ric Flair, and it was deeply disturbing, Kenny. It really was. And the way that Tommy Dreamer had made the comment about Ric Flair, and the comment was, Ric Flair's not going to try to impose by force any sexual stuff onto anybody. That's what Dreamer said. Very solemn comment, very serious. And then she gave her version of what happened, which people will have seen. It was really disturbing to watch, and it just really cast completely different light on the whole thing. Just a very disturbing episode. And I totally understand why Impact Wrestling has suspended Tommy Dreamer and why he's been sent packing from Busted Open. And understand as well why WWE has removed Ric Flair from the signature, from the opening, and has distanced itself from him as well, hasn't it, Kenny?
Yeah, no, they have. And I think part of it is, because Tommy Dreamer, I mean, to put context to it, he would not have seen the Heidi Doyle clips of what she was going to say. But at the same time, Tommy Dreamer's been around wrestling long enough that he knows he's on Dark Side of the Ring. It's about a very sort of controversial incident. And, Jim Cornette had said in his latest podcast, which I thought was very interesting to listen to, kind of to talk about how a wrestler would see it. And he was saying, there's a lot of stuff that wrestlers would do that, like, in the real world just wouldn't fly. And people in the real world would be like, why would you be in a robe and helicoptering your dick be a funny thing? Like, and maybe wrestlers would laugh at that. And, that's obviously escalated and all that kind of stuff. But for Tommy Dreamer to say, people are offended by my ponytail, and compare that to, even if you were to just look at the situation of these flight attendants being put in the company of needles and vomit and nudity and stuff, that alone. So I just think with Tommy Dreamer, it was just a really ignorant statement to make. And like you say, I mean, he's supposed to be in charge of talent at Impact. They had to make a stand, and I think Ed Nordholm made a great call.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tommy Dreamer was effectively management at ECW at the end in 2001. So that's 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. He was management in WWE in the talent relations department for a long time. He's been running his own promotion since 2012, 2013, but a long time. Obviously, management and Impact Wrestling. So, and he said, as he admitted in the documentary, he's 50-year-old. Mm-hmm. He's not some 18-year-old kid who doesn't know how the real world views things. His comments I just thought they were really crass, really cold. Mm-hmm. I thought he came across terribly on the documentary. Really bad.
Cornette made a great point about Tommy Dreamer where he said that, Tommy Dreamer seemed very agitated that he was even having to talk about this. Yeah. Is it like, how dare, and, when he said, the flight attendant should, she should have maybe taken it further or whatever. It's like, come on, like in 2004, a woman.
This is what he said. Maybe she should have not taken a payout and went to the fullest extent of the law to then truly put this heinous person in jail. My opinion. And I mean, I just couldn't believe he said those words on a documentary. Um, just appalling, appalling, Kenny. And then later on he said, yeah, it's a joke, it's a gag. And then he said, today 1000% inappropriate. And then he said, my hairstyle is inappropriate. And then went off on this bizarre tangent about his double ponytail. It's just like, this is like a serious situation, Tommy.
Yeah.
And you're trying to turn. I'm not really. I mean, let's face it. Tommy's not renowned for his sense of humour. We both know that. And I mean, just stay away from the jokes, particularly when you're discussing a subject like this. But you're right. Obviously, he wouldn't have known exactly what Heidi Doyle would say or how it would be cut. He wouldn't know that, but he should have been able to serve. He should have really had the foresight to be able to work out what was going to happen here. Because obviously a lawsuit was filed. And these allegations were made at the time. And I believe WWE settled. I know the lawsuit disappeared. So I'm sure that's what they said in the documentary. Some other people have said that maybe there wasn't a settlement and that's how she was able to talk about it so freely. So, I mean, that kind of confused me as to why somebody would say that's what I spoke to somebody the other day and he told me about that. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure there was a settlement. Otherwise, this would have turned into a much bigger story than it was at the time.
Yeah, well, she mentioned that she had taken. I mean, I do just want to bring this up because I know some people have brought it up. So apparently Heidi Doyle was involved in some sort of jewelry theft in 2016, and I've seen some people kind of using that as like a, is she trustworthy? And I mean, I think they're very different things. I think that theft or whatever, that's a separate issue from like 14 years before how she felt as a mid-20s woman on an airplane. So I think I don't think that's really a way.
How is that relevant? That's been used to try and discredit her. To try and protect the business from this, outsider who's throwing mud at it. And it's just like, no, everyone knows what happened, or everyone's heard the stories of what happened, and I believed everything that she said. Why would you? Why I just did.
Yeah, it feels because she even said in the documentary, she was like, I didn't really know if I should come and talk about this today. They seeked her out and wanted her to talk about it. But very interesting. But I do want to, before we move on, talk about Ric Flair. He's come out and essentially said that it's not true, that the helicopter part of it's true, but he would not have forced himself on a woman. And I think he needed to make some sort of statement. But my question to you is, Flair seemed all but ready for a big spot in AEW. In a managerial role, but it feels like now it would be the worst PR move that Tony Khan could make to associate with him in any way.
Yes, I would agree. I mean, if you on the Dark Side of the Ring episode, Rob Van Dam, he was the only one who really sort of corroborated Heidi Doyle's statements in the documentary. So he had some comments to make there, which I think were very telling. Obviously, Ric Flair was denied this. I can't really comment on that. I've said all I need to about what happened. Obviously, I wasn't there. But yeah, you're right about AEW and Tony Khan. It did feel like that would be Ric's natural destination, AEW. We know Tony Khan had been a long-time fan. I don't see how they can bring him in. I have no idea how AEW can hire him after these disclosures in the Dark Side of the Ring. This has been a real feather in the cap for Dark Side of the Ring because this is a story. It's not a new story, obviously. It was May 2002, and as I said, the lawsuit was filed 2 years. About 2 years. I think it was 2004.
Yes.
So this information was out there in the public domain, but this documentary brought it back to light. It's a trending topic on Twitter. I think a lot of new fans were not aware of what had occurred on that flight. So I mean, this was a big moment for that documentary, kind of not breaking the story, but reminding people of it, and being able to, round up this number of talking heads to speak so, seriously about it and just so soberly about it. And it was, compelling stuff was the documentary. And I think it really is a credit to the Dark Side of the Ring. I know some of the previous documentaries they've done, I haven't, questioned some of the content, but I've got to say I thought this was very well put together, and it seemed credible to me.